Dim the lights, grab a snack, and try to relax. But don't say I didn't warn you. We weren't supposed to take Route 33. That's what the gas station guy told us, half joking, half worried. Locals don't use it after sundown, he said, wiping grease from his palms. Not since that mine fire back in '62. Some say the road never healed. We laughed it off. Of course we did. For college friends on a summer road trip through the Appalachians, camera bags, coolers, Bluetooth speakers. We thought we were invincible. It was me, Nate, who insisted on taking the scenic route. Jamie was driving. Beck sat up front, always on his phone. And Tara, quiet, bookish Tara, rode beside me, clutching her worn-out journal like a talisman. We hit Route 33 just before dusk. It twisted through endless forest, a narrow two-lane bleeding between black pine and tangled brush. No signs. No mile markers. Just that uneasy feeling that we were slipping off the map. I should have turned back when we passed the first dead animal. It was a deer, bloated and stiff, sprawled across the road like it had fallen from the sky. A second one appeared 20 minutes later. Then a third. Beck stopped taking pictures. The trees grew denser, almost predatory, leaning toward the road like eavesdropping giants. Shadows got longer. The music cut out. Jamie fiddled with the radio, just static. GPS won't load, Beck muttered, holding up his phone. No signal. Something moved in the woods to our right. Just a flash. A white face. No. Probably just a fox. But Tara sat up straighter, fingers digging into her seatbelt. Then, just as the sky turned fully black, we saw it. A small wooden sign nailed to a crooked post. Welcome to Black Hollow. Hand-painted letters, flaked and faded. No lights. No buildings. Just that sign. And beyond it, a road winding downward like a scar carved into the mountain. We're not on the map anymore, I whispered. Jamie slowed the car. Do we turn around? That's when we heard the knocking. Not from outside, from beneath the car. Slow, deliberate. Knock. 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 Jamie slammed the brakes. We jolted forward, the seatbelts digging in. Jesus, did we hit something? Beck said, voice tight. Jamie leaned forward, staring into the darkness beyond the windshield. It came from underneath. Like something in the knock. Louder this time. Sharper. A sound that didn't belong to any mechanical failure. We sat frozen, the forest pressing in all around, silent but too alive, like it was watching. Get out and check, Tara whispered. Jamie didn't move. He was pale, knuckles white on the steering wheel. So I got out. The air was colder now, unnaturally so. I crouched beside the car, holding my phone's flashlight beneath the chassis. Nothing. No animals. No damage. Just dirt. Roots. Rocks. And something else. There were handprints. Smudged along the bottom of the car. Not oily. Not dirty. Just wet, as if a child had pressed damp fingers against the metal, dragging them toward the trunk. I backed away. There's nothing there, I lied, getting back in. But Jamie turned the engine. The car sputtered. And died. Battery? Beck asked. Jamie tried again. Click. Click. Nothing. It's not the battery. It just won't start. Tara didn't speak. She had her journal open, flipping rapidly through the pages. I caught a glimpse, sketches. Dozens of them. All showing that same crooked sign, Black Hollow. You've been here before, I said slowly. Tara nodded. In my dreams. Silence spread like fog. Then the woods made a sound I will never forget. A voice, low and wet, dragged through the trees like a gurgling whisper. Turn around. We all heard it. We all felt it, deep in our chests, like our ribs were being scraped from the inside. And then the trees began to creak. No wind. Just pressure. Movement. Like they were shifting. Bending. Following. I'm walking back, Beck said, grabbing his bag. We passed a house like a mile ago, remember that red porch? There was no house, Jamie said. Beck froze. What? There was no house. We all stared at each other. And then the road behind us, where we came from, wasn't there anymore. Just forest. Endless black forest. Tara finally spoke. Her voice sounded like it came from deep inside her chest. We're already in Black Hollow. We got out of the car because we had to. The air was wrong. Thick like syrup, smelling faintly of ash and soil, like the inside of a grave. The forest leaned inward from all sides, swallowing the road, the car, our sense of direction. Jamie tried calling for help. No signal. Beck smashed a stick against a tree and cursed until his voice cracked. Tara just stared down the road, where the blacktop slithered into the shadows like a tongue. I saw that sign weeks ago, she said. In my dreams. The road. The deer. The knocking. All of it. You never told us, Jamie hissed. I didn't want it to be real. None of us did. But there we were, no service, no road back, no stars overhead. Just clouds swirling like smoke. Just woods so dense they seemed to breathe. Then we heard the bell. A faint chime from deeper in the forest. It rang once. Then again. Slow, like it marked something ancient and sacred. Dong. Dong. The sound wasn't metallic. It was, wet. Muffled. Like a bell underwater. We turned, all four of us facing the direction it came from. That's when we saw the lantern. A faint, flickering light bobbing between the trees. Coming closer. Maybe it's a ranger, Beck said. Jamie laughed bitterly. At midnight? In the middle of nowhere? No ranger, Tara whispered. It's him. Who? But she didn't answer. She turned and ran into the woods. Tara! I shouted, following. Branches clawed at my arms. Roots twisted beneath my feet. The forest pulled at my clothes like fingers trying to keep me in place. But I kept running, the others behind me. We followed her into a clearing. And stopped. There was a cabin. Old. Half-rotted. Boards falling off the sides like skin. The windows were covered in wax paper. Something hung above the door. It took me a second to recognize it, a jawbone. Human. Beck started hyperventilating. Nope. Nope. No way. Tara stood at the door, staring up. I've seen this place before, she whispered. It never let me go inside in the dream. The door opened on its own. No wind. No hands. Just a slow creaking motion. Inside was darkness. But not just an absence of light. A presence. Something thick and ancient, watching from the pitch. And then that voice came again, wet and gravelly, right beside my ear. One must stay. One must speak. One must bleed. We didn't go inside the cabin right away. Not because we were smart. Because we were paralyzed. The door hung open like a mouth, exhaling rot. That voice still clung to the air around us, its last 3 words slithering through the silence like smoke. One must stay. One must speak. One must bleed. What the hell does that mean? Beck snapped. What is this place? Tara answered without looking at him. It's where stories are buried. Jamie stepped forward, face tight with disbelief. You're not making sense. She finally turned to face us, her voice almost a chant. Somewhere in these mountains, there's a place that doesn't belong to the world. A hole in time. My grandmother used to tell me about it when I was little. She called it, the Hollowing. Said it wasn't a town, but a hunger. A place that remembers every soul that crosses into it. And you didn't think that was worth mentioning before now? Beck yelled. She looked at him, calm as a corpse. You wouldn't have believed me. The lantern light was gone. So was the road. So was the car. We were completely swallowed. Jamie broke first. He shoved past Tara and stormed into the cabin. The door didn't creak this time. It shut, hard, like a trap. We shouted for him. No answer. Beck grabbed the handle, yanked, it didn't budge. I tried too. Locked. Sealed tight. Cold to the touch. Then something slammed against it from the inside. Once. Twice. A third time. Then silence. Jamie? I whispered through the cracks. No answer. Just the sound of scraping, slow, circular. Like something dragging nails into wood, carving something. And then the smell. Copper. Wet. Blood. Tara stepped back. It's already taken him. We should never have followed the bell. Beck lost it then. He screamed and ran into the woods again, this time deeper, blindly, wildly. I called after him, but Tara grabbed my wrist. No use, she said. They'll find him. They. She just looked at me with eyes I didn't recognize anymore. And then, in the woods behind us, Beck screamed. Not like someone afraid. Like someone breaking. It didn't last long. Just one shriek. Then a crunch. Then silence. Like the trees were satisfied. Tara turned back to the cabin. One stayed. One bled. That leaves one more. She looked at me. You have to speak. I stared at Tara, mouth dry. What do you mean I have to speak? She didn't answer. She just walked to the cabin and sat on the front step, like she was waiting for a funeral procession that hadn't yet arrived. The forest didn't move. The wind didn't blow. Even the insects were gone. Only the trees breathed now, slowly, like lungs made of bark and sorrow. And somewhere deep inside the earth, something listened. I approached the door again, the blood still fresh along the edges of the threshold. The handle was freezing. I pressed my ear to the wood, heart rattling in my chest. No scraping now. Just whispering. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. Layered voices like old prayers and weeping lullabies, overlapping in a language that didn't belong to this century, or any. I backed away. Tara's voice came soft behind me. This place isn't haunted by ghosts. It's haunted by stories. Every soul that gets trapped here leaves a piece behind. A tale unfinished. And the hollow feeds on those endings. It traps people until their stories are done. But it always demands a narrator. My stomach twisted. One must speak, I whispered. You mean, tell the story? She nodded. And if you don't? From the woods behind us, something began humming. A child's voice. Then another. Then dozens more, rising in a haunting harmony. The same melody. The same note, over and over again, burrowing into my spine. I recognized it. It was the tune my grandmother used to sing to me when I was sick. I hadn't heard it in 20 years. How does it know that? I whispered. It remembers you, Tara said. It always has. That's why the road called you. You started this. It needs you to finish it. I looked at her, truly seeing her for the first time. Her skin was pale. Translucent. And her shadow was gone. You're not alive, are you? She smiled sadly. I was the last speaker. 50 years ago. They never let me leave. My knees buckled. The forest was closing in again. I heard footsteps, wet, deliberate, slow, approaching from all directions. Tell the story, Tara said, standing. Or the hollow will write it for you. Then she stepped backward. And vanished. Like smoke pulled through a keyhole. I turned back toward the cabin. There was a desk inside now. A candle. A chair. And an old leather journal, open and waiting. Its pages were blank. The moment I crossed the threshold, the air changed. It was thicker inside the cabin, dense like syrup, warm like breath. The candle on the desk flickered with a flame too still, like it didn't belong to this world's wind. Shadows clung to the walls like stains, some of them in the shape of people who were no longer there. And then I saw it. The journal. Its cover was cracked leather, dark and dry, with a faint spiral etched into the center. When I touched it, my fingertips buzzed, like the book itself was alive. Pages fluttered. And then, words began to appear. Not written by my hand. Not written by any hand. He sits in the room where all stories end. I backed away. The desk groaned. The candle hissed. The voice returned. Right behind me. Speak. I turned. Nothing there. Speak, or be written. I gripped the edge of the desk. My own voice sounded foreign when I finally said, I don't know how this ends. The candle flickered. Then the journal flipped itself back to a blank page. And words bled across the paper like ink made of shadows. Entry 1. Nathaniel Cross arrived at the hollow without knowing he'd been here before. The road he took was no accident. The others were sacrifices. Only he remained to tell the truth. I stepped away. I didn't write that. But more words kept forming. Entry 2. He would deny the road's will, but the hollow does not need permission. It has only one law. What is not spoken becomes flesh. The air went cold. The shadows moved. Something stepped into the cabin. It was Jamie. Or, it looked like Jamie. But his skin was waxy, stretched too tight. His mouth twitched as if trying to form words that wouldn't come. And from his chest, a long line of writing had been carved, deep and fresh, each letter stitched with black thread. It read, "I stayed. I stumbled backward." The thing that wore Jamie's face stepped closer. I could hear his bones clicking as he moved. Behind him, Beck appeared too. Bent backward at the spine, his mouth sewn shut. His eyes were wide, pleading. But from his throat came a voice that wasn't his. "You're the last. Finish it." I ran to the journal. My hands shook. The page waited, blank. Empty. Hungry. I picked up the quill. "Fine," I whispered. "I'll tell the story." And then, everything stopped. The forest. The voices. Even the air itself. The journal's pages turned faster, faster, until I saw images, scenes, drawn in blood. A woman buried alive under roots. A miner burning in a tunnel, screaming words no one could understand. A faceless child crawling along the ceiling of this very cabin. Then, me, sitting here, writing. Writing the last words of this story. But I don't remember what comes next. Because behind me, the candle just went out, the cabin fell into a darkness so complete, it didn't feel like night, it felt like a burial. The candle had gone out. But I didn't move. I couldn't. The journal sat before me, page half-written. My name glared up in blood-dark ink. Nathaniel Cross. The final voice. Behind me, I could hear them breathing. Jamie. Beck. Or whatever had become of them. Their air came in wheezing rasps, like lungs that remembered how to breathe but not why. Every second I didn't write, the pressure in the room grew thicker, like gravity bending toward my spine. "Tell the end," the voice said again. This time it was right next to my ear. Low. Familiar. It sounded like my father. Except he died when I was 12. I stood, backing away from the desk. The journal slammed shut on its own. The air snapped. Then something peeled itself from the corner of the room. At first, I thought it was a man. But as it stepped forward, I realized it was a shadow, not cast, not shaped by light, but alive. Its form shimmered between outlines, a miner with a lantern, a crying woman in a dress, a boy with no face. Every step it took, its shape changed. The hollow. The true form. A collector of stories. It reached for me. I ran. Through the door, now open, and into the woods. But the woods were different now. No trees. Just black roots, woven together like veins. The ground was soft and wet, like I was running across skin. And above me, the sky churned with eyes. Huge and endless, blinking in perfect silence. Then I saw her. Tara. She stood among the roots, whole again, her journal in hand. "Finish it," she said. "You're the last voice. Or it will start again, with someone new. I don't know the ending." I screamed. She stepped aside. And there, growing from the ground like a flower, was a new journal. The cover was stitched from flesh. The spiral symbol burned into its front. I opened it. There were no blank pages. Just one final line. To leave the hollow, he must write how he dies. The forest held its breath. Behind me, the roots rustled. Waiting that I stood in the woods that weren't woods anymore. A pulsing landscape of root and rot. The air reeked of iron. The sky blinked like 1,000 watching gods, silent, endless, unmerciful. The journal waited in my hands. Its skin-wrapped cover twitched as if it breathed, and that one sentence bled darker the longer I stared at it. To leave the hollow, he must write how he dies. I dropped it. No, I said aloud. There's got to be another way. But the forest disagreed. It groaned. The ground shook. Behind me, the shadow thing moved again, morphing with every step. Tara's face. Beck's scream. Jamie's bleeding grin. Then my mother, whispering lullabies she never sang. I picked up the journal. My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped it again. What if I didn't write? What if I simply ran until the roots thinned, until the forest forgot my name? But that's the trick, isn't it? The hollow doesn't forget. It remembers you even before you arrive. I opened the journal again. The page had changed. Now it read. Entry final. Nathaniel Cross stands before the hollow, unwilling. Unready. The final voice. The last ink. The forest waits for truth, and truth is always blood. And beneath it, space for one more sentence. My sentence. I raised the pen, no, the quill, its tip barbed like a thorn. I didn't dip it in ink. I bit the inside of my lip and let the blood run down my chin, onto my hand, and into the quill's tip. I wrote. Nathaniel Cross does not die. He buries the hollow instead. The ground trembled. The trees screamed, actually screamed, groaning like dying whales, the bark splitting and spraying black sap in all directions. The journal burned in my hands, then turned cold. The ink vanished. The page rewrote itself. Entry final, rewritten. He tried to change the story. But the hollow doesn't accept lies. What is not spoken becomes flesh. Then I felt it. Something inside me. Moving. Crawling. A root splitting through the base of my spine. Another pushing up through my throat. The hollow wouldn't let me lie. It didn't need me to write my death. It was already writing me into itself. I dropped to my knees, choking. My jaw creaked open unnaturally wide. And the forest began to speak through me. Dozens of voices. Centuries old. Stories buried. Stories screaming. And I knew then what Tara meant. There's no last speaker. There's only the next one that I was on my knees. My jaw cracked open wider than bone should allow. Something had hold of me from the inside out, stretching my spine, threading through my ribs, rewriting my marrow like parchment. The hollow wasn't killing me. It was rewriting me. The journal flipped its pages faster than any wind could move, and with every turn, more of my memories drained into it. I saw them being stolen. My 5th birthday. The way Jamie laughed the first night of the trip. Tara's hand, holding mine in the car. Beck's stupid victory dance at gas stations. All of it being devoured. Then, nothing. Silence. The forest stopped humming. The roots untwined. The air grew still. I opened my eyes. I was sitting at the desk again. The candle lit. The journal closed. The others, gone. No Tara. No Jamie. No Beck. Just me. Alone. A fresh page before me. Blank. And I realized what the hollow had done. It hadn't just taken them. It had made me the next trap. The next voice. And now the road would call again. Not for me. But for someone else. Already, I could hear a distant engine humming far away, a car approaching the woods, headlights cutting into dusk. Already, the forest began to stir again. And the candle's flame leaned toward the door like it was welcoming. I looked down at the journal. My hands moved on their own. Writing the first line of someone else's nightmare. Entry 1. They thought it was just a road trip through the Appalachians. Open book, the end. Or maybe just the beginning. It started with the rain. Hard. Relentless. Like the sky had cracked open just to drown the earth. We were 4 hours deep into a detour we never meant to take, some winding mountain stretch called Devil's Spine. We'd missed the turnoff near Logan, West Virginia, and GPS lost signal 10 minutes later. Now it was just us, the road, and the storm chewing at our tires. Tell me again why we didn't turn around when we had the chance, Rachel muttered, gripping the wheel so tight her knuckles looked bone white. I said we should have, I mumbled from the passenger seat. Y'all were too busy arguing about gas stations, Vince said from the back, kicking his muddy boots against the seat. Now look, feels like we're driving through someone's funeral. Lightning flashed through the trees, and for a second, I thought I saw someone standing on the side of the road. Just a shape. Tall. Still. Watching. Did you see? I started. Rachel was already braking. There's someone out there. The car slowed. Raindrops clattered against the windshield like gravel. And then we saw it clearer. A figure. Mid-50s maybe. Wearing a long, soaking trench coat, head down, standing perfectly still in the rain. Vince leaned forward. Dude, that's messed up. Out here in this storm. I'm not stopping, Rachel said, voice tight. Looks like he needs help. I didn't want to say it, but I did anyway. Something's wrong. That man hasn't moved once. Rachel hit the horn. The figure didn't flinch. She rolled the window down just a crack, letting in freezing rain. Hey, she shouted. You okay? The man slowly lifted his head. What we saw wasn't a face. Not a full one. There were stitches across his mouth. Deep black lines like tar. His eyes were cloudy. His skin looked waterlogged, soggy. Then he raised one arm and pointed behind us. Not up the road. Back the way we'd come. Then lightning flashed again. And he was gone. Not walked away. Not faded. Just gone. Rachel rolled the window up. Nope. Nope. We're leaving. She floored it. But less than 10 seconds later, the headlights caught him again. Standing in front of the car. Only now, he wasn't pointing anymore. He was smiling. Or trying to. The stitches strained. And then he mouthed something. We couldn't hear it. But all of us understood. Wrong way. Rachel slammed the brakes. The tires screamed against the wet asphalt, skidding us to a halt just inches from the stitched-mouth man. Then. Nothing. He was gone again. Like the rain had washed him off the world. Vince was shaking in the back seat. Tell me you both saw that. Tell me that wasn't, like, a ghost or some skinwalker mountain thing. I don't know what we saw, Rachel whispered. Her hands trembled on the wheel. But we're not staying here. The road ahead twisted upward, the forest on either side leaning in like it wanted to smother the car. Rain hammered the roof. Wind pushed at us from all angles. Branches scraped the windows like fingernails. We pressed on. I watched the mile markers. There weren't any. Not a single one. Then, finally, a sign appeared through the rain. Old. Rusted. Hanging crooked on a wooden post. It read, "Welcome to Ashbluff, population 0. Rachel slowed down. That's not funny. Vince leaned forward. How can a town have 0 population? The road narrowed as we entered Ashbluff. It wasn't even a town anymore, just husks of houses half swallowed by the woods. Old porches sagging into the mud. Windows blackened. Some of the trees looked like they'd grown through the buildings. Keep driving, I said. This place is dead. But Rachel was already braking again. Because up ahead, just past an old, caved-in general store, we saw another figure. A child. Standing in the center of the road. Barefoot. Soaked to the skin. And smiling. Her eyes were too wide. Her head tilted slightly, like a marionette hanging by one thread. She raised one arm. And waved. Rachel didn't move. Rachel didn't move. The girl mouthed something. Then again. And again. Vince gasped. She's saying it. Same as the other one. I read her lips. Wrong way. Rachel backed up fast, tires spinning in the mud. We turned around, backtracking down Devil's Spine, heart pounding in my throat. But 20 seconds later. We passed the same general store. The same girl. The same wave. We were stuck. What the hell is happening? Rachel whispered. None of us answered. The wipers dragged across the windshield with an awful screech like they were trying to claw something off, not clear rain. The forest pressed tighter on either side of the road, trees warped and leaning inward like they were watching. We tried again. Drove past the general store. The girl. Waved again. Wrong way. Turned around. Same loop. Vince started laughing, short, cracked, almost hysterical. We're stuck in some kinda damn ghost town carousel. Shut up, Rachel hissed. He leaned back, staring out the window, his breath fogging the glass. We should have never left the interstate. I told y'all I had a bad feeling about this trip. I pulled out my phone for the 100th time. Still no signal. Not even SOS. Then Rachel hit the brakes. Hard. Because this time, there was no girl. Just the road, slick and wet. The general store to the left, rotted and still. Nothing in front of us. We all leaned forward. It felt wrong. Too still. Then a knock hit Rachel's side window. 3 slow, deliberate taps. But no one was there. I looked over. The glass had fogged, except for a handprint smeared in the condensation. Small. Child-sized. But with 6 fingers. Drive, I whispered. She didn't wait. We shot forward, only this time, the road changed. The pavement gave way to cracked stone, like something older had emerged from underneath it. Moss-covered. No lines. No signs. The rain got worse. It no longer fell from above, it rose from the ground in foggy clouds, like the forest was. Exhaling. The trees twisted into new shapes. Human shapes. Figures grew out of the trunks. Limbs buried in bark. Faces frozen mid-scream. Then Rachel swerved, hard. Something darted across the road, fast and low, dragging something behind it. A bag? No. Not a bag. A body. I caught a flash of pale hands, wrists limp, hair trailing through the mud. What was that? Vince screamed. I don't know, Rachel choked. But deep inside, I did know. It was showing us things. Things buried here. People lost on this road that never left. And then, up ahead, in the fog. A house. Still standing. Lights on. A porch. A door slightly open. Rachel slowed. We all stared at it. And without speaking, we knew. We had to go inside that we didn't speak. We just knew. The house sat crookedly at the edge of the road, shrouded in fog and leaning like it wanted to fall but was being held up by something unseen. Warm light poured from the windows, flickering like candle flame. The porch was warped, wooden slats bowed with age. The door creaked softly in the wind. And it was open. Just a few inches. Maybe someone lives here, Vince whispered. No one's lived out here in decades, I replied, stepping out of the car. My shoes sank into the wet gravel. The rain had slowed to a fine mist, but everything was damp, the kind of wet that gets into your bones. Rachel followed me. Vince hesitated, then hurried to catch up, whispering curses under his breath. The air felt thick the moment we stepped onto the porch. The kind of thick you feel in graveyards. The door swung inward when I touched it, slowly, groaning like it resented being opened. Inside was stillness. Dust floated in the air like ash. The floorboards creaked with every step. There was a fire burning in the hearth, but no heat came from it. And the furniture. It looked like it hadn't been touched in decades. Hello? Rachel called out. No answer. We moved further in. Photos lined the walls, black and white. Old, maybe 1930s. All of them showed families posed stiffly, dressed in Sunday clothes. Faces serious. Staring. And every photo had been scratched out. The eyes. The mouths. Some had whole heads gouged away. One photo hung lower than the others. It showed the house we were in. But burned. Smoke rose behind it. The windows were black, melted. The porch gone. In front stood a family of 5. All smiling. All stitched across the mouth. Then, behind us. Bang. The door slammed shut. Rachel jumped. What was that? The door, Vince said. It just closed. He tried the handle. Locked. Of course. Then the fire in the hearth flickered. And a voice came from it. Low. Hoarse. Like breath scraping over stone. They always come back when it rains. We turned as one. There was someone sitting in the rocking chair near the fireplace now. Old. Skin like old bark. A wide-brimmed hat shadowing the face. One eye white and clouded, the other glowing faint amber. I warned the first ones. Warned the others. Now you. Too late for all of it. Who are you? I asked. The figure didn't answer directly. Just rocked slowly. Then pointed to the staircase. Don't go up. If you go up, the road don't end. We looked to the stairs. A flicker of movement at the top. Then a sound. Dripping. Steady. Wet. Heavy. Like blood, the old man didn't move again. Just kept rocking, creaking back and forth, whispering to the fire like it answered him in smoke. Rachel looked at the stairs. So did Vince. Why would he warn us if it's already too late, she whispered. Maybe it's not a warning, I muttered. Maybe it's a dare. The dripping grew louder. Drip. 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 Somewhere above us, something was leaking, thick and steady, like water or blood. I couldn't tell. My feet moved on their own. I stepped onto the first stair. It groaned under me, like something alive had felt me. Vince hissed, "What are you doing, man?" He said, "Don't go." He also said, "Too late for all of it," I snapped, my voice lower than I meant. So what's the difference? Rachel followed, reluctantly. Vince came last, muttering prayers under his breath. The house felt bigger upstairs. Too big. Wrong. Like we'd stepped into a place that had no business being above anything. There was a long hallway. 8 doors. 4 on each side. All of them closed except the last one at the end. The door that was bleeding. Thick, dark fluid pooled beneath it. It smelled metallic, coppery. We walked slowly down the hall. Each door we passed whispered behind us. Not voices. Not exactly. Just words forming inside our heads. Mine said, "He's still alive in there." Rachel whispered, "I heard something too." Vince swallowed hard. "They're lying." We reached the final door. The wood pulsed. The doorknob twitched. The dripping had stopped. Everything was still. I reached out. My hand hovered inches from the knob. "Don't," Rachel said. Too late. My fingers touched it. The door swung open. What we saw inside wasn't a room. It was a chamber of roots. They pulsed like veins, wrapped around the walls, the ceiling, even the air itself. Hanging from them were bodies. Wrapped tight. Like cocoons. Some of them moved. Twitched. One of them had Beck's face. His mouth opened. And from within, 1,000 voices screamed in unison. "You shouldn't be here." Beck's face twisted, eyes wide with terror, mouth stretching impossibly open. But it wasn't just his scream. It was dozens. Hundreds. The cocooned bodies around him began to shudder and convulse, as if waking up from nightmares that hadn't ended. Their skin was pale. Some were rotted. Others, fresh. Still moving. Still aware. Rachel backed away, gasping, her hand over her mouth. Vince dropped to his knees, muttering, "Oh God, oh God, oh God," like it was the only sentence he could remember. I couldn't look away from Beck's face. He was alive in there. Trapped. His eyes locked. With mine, pleading. "Help me," he mouthed. His lips didn't move. The root wrapped around his mouth pulsed with each syllable. "Help me." Then, something moved behind the roots. A massive form, shifting through the thick, pulsing tendrils. It was watching us from behind the wall of bodies. A shape made of mist and shadow. No form, just outline. Eyes like fogged glass. Antlers like twisted tree branches. Its head crooked to the side. And then it spoke, not with a voice, but through the roots, through the walls, through the bones in our teeth. "The road takes what's owed." The floor split open. Rachel screamed as we dropped. Not far. Just one story. But we weren't in the house anymore. We were back on the road. In the car. Like nothing had happened. Rain on the windshield. Radio buzzing static. Vince sat in the back seat, pale and shaking. Rachel was driving, hands trembling. I looked out the window. We were passing the general store again. The same girl stood outside. But this time, she wasn't waving. She had no arms. Just stitched stumps, and her mouth moved. Same words. But one extra line. You stayed too long. Then she smiled, and her smile opened wide enough to tear. Up ahead, the sign. Welcome to Ashbluff, population, 3. Wait, I whispered. Wasn't it 0? No one answered. We passed the sign. A new one waited 50 feet ahead. Welcome to Ashbluff, population, 4. It was counting us. The next sign slid past in the headlights like a knife through dark silk. Welcome to Ashbluff, population, 5. Vince whimpered. That can't be right. It's counting us, Rachel whispered. Every time we pass it, it updates. Then why did it start at 0? I asked, even though I knew. Because before we came, there was no one left. We drove in silence. The road no longer looped. It stretched forward now, straight as a spine, slick with endless rain. Trees leaned in like mourners. The radio crackled, buzzed, and finally cut to. Single voice. Faint. Female. Broken. Exit, before it sees you. If you hear footsteps, do not look behind you. The voice dissolved into static. Where the hell is the exit? Vince shouted. There's no GPS. No signs, Rachel snapped. We're still on Devil's Spine. There's nowhere to turn. Then, up ahead, a fork. Left or right? No signs. No lights. Just black forest on both sides. Rachel slowed. What now? She breathed. I didn't answer. Because something moved in the rearview mirror. A tall, thin silhouette walking straight behind the car. But when I turned to look, nothing. The road behind us was empty. Then I heard it. Tap. 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 On my side window. I turned slowly. There was no one there. But a muddy bare footprint had appeared on the glass. On the inside. I looked at Vince. He was frozen. Not blinking. His mouth trembled, and he whispered, I can hear breathing. Behind me. I felt it too then. Wet. Shallow. Right behind my ear. I didn't turn. Rachel gripped the wheel, eyes wide. Do not turn around, she whispered. Just pick a side. Which one? I asked. And from the back seat, a voice, not Vince's, hissed. Left. Rachel swerved the car left. Tires spun in mud. The road narrowed, choked by trees. The moment we turned, everything went quiet. No rain. No radio. Just a thick silence that pressed on our skulls. Then a single word whispered from the trees. Wrong. The word hung in the air like smoke. Wrong. The forest had changed again. The trees weren't just trees, they were watching. Their bark twisted into snarling faces, mouths frozen in screams, eyes wide and hollow. Some looked like they were once human. The road narrowed more with every turn, vines curling over the shoulders of the asphalt like veins pulling us in. Rachel whispered, "We're not driving anymore." "What?" "The car," she said. "It's not touching the road." I looked down. She was right. We were floating. No hum of the engine. No friction. Just, gliding forward. "Vince?" I turned. He wasn't there. His seat was empty. Still buckled. Still indented. But gone. Rachel screamed and slammed the brakes, but the car didn't stop. It just kept gliding. Then, darkness. A wall of it, stretching across the road like night, had been folded into a sheet and dropped in front of us. We passed through it. And came out the other side into a town. Not the dead shell we saw before. This was Ash Bluff alive. But wrong. Everyone in the street was standing still. Staring up at the sky. Mouths open. Silent. Pale. Their skin had a waxy, drowned look, like they'd been pulled out of a river days too late. The sky above them was wrong, too. No sun. No moon. Just swirling clouds that moved against the wind, pulsing with red light like something behind them was trying to break through. We rolled to a stop in front of a massive building, the old church. But it looked new again, freshly painted, candles glowing in every window. The bell tower loomed above, swaying slightly. At its base stood Vince. His eyes were black. His mouth was stitched shut. He pointed to the doors of the church. They opened on their own. And inside, I swear I saw every one of our faces. Dozens of them. Hanging from strings like puppets. Smiling, the doors yawned wide, groaning on rusted hinges. Warm light spilled out, but it wasn't firelight. It flickered like something alive, casting long, pulsing shadows that didn't match anything solid. Vince stood like a statue, mouth still sewn shut, tears streaming silently from his darkened eyes. He didn't move. Just pointed. To us. To the church. Rachel and I stepped out of the car. It hissed behind us, like something exhaling. Steam rose from beneath it, but it wasn't from the engine. It was from the ground. The moment our feet touched the church steps, a sound hit us. A choir. Not singing, chanting. Low. Wet. Wrong. Like voices gargling through drowning lungs. We crossed the threshold. Inside, it wasn't a church. It was a throat. The floor was damp and pulsing. Pews twisted with vines and roots, shaped like kneeling bodies. The altar was a black stone slab, and behind it hung a mirror. No reflection. Just us, over and over again, walking in. Again. And again. Dozens of versions of ourselves entering the same church on different nights, different years. Always in the rain. Always after taking the wrong turn. And above us, from the rafters. They were hanging. Puppets. Effigies. Copies of every person we'd seen in Ash Bluff. Mouths open. Some whispered. Some wept. Some just watched. At the altar stood a figure. Tall. Robed in stitched flesh. Its face hidden beneath a veil of damp lace. And from beneath it came a voice made of rot and memory. The road is a vein. You've bled into it. I stepped forward. What do you want? It didn't answer. It split. The robe collapsed, and beneath it, roots. Endless, coiling roots made of hair and teeth and bone, slithering down the aisle like snakes. They wrapped around Vince, lifted him off the ground. He didn't scream. Just looked at me, pleading with those black, crying eyes. Rachel tried to run. The doors slammed shut. The roots crawled for her next. You entered the spine, the voices moaned from the rafters. Now the spine enters you. And then the mirror shattered. And through it came another version of me. But his eyes were hollow. And he smiled. The other me stepped through the shattered mirror like it was a pool of black water. His skin was pale, almost translucent, and his smile didn't reach his eyes. Because he had no eyes, just sockets filled with ash and teeth. Rachel screamed, backing into a pew that groaned like a dying animal. The roots pulsed beneath the floor, rising through the cracks, coiling around her ankles. The other me tilted his head. Spoke with my voice, but backward. Like someone had recorded me and hit rewind. I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand it. But I felt it. It wanted to replace me. Why? I shouted, stepping between him and Rachel. What the hell do you want? He smiled wider and whispered, this time clear. Because you left pieces of yourself behind, and we collect what's lost. Behind him, the mirror reformed, rebuilding from its shards like time reversing. And inside it, Ash Bluff, burning. People screaming. Us, running. Beck, hanging. Vince, reaching out, stitched and hollow. And something else. The thing that had been in the forest. Antlers. Fog eyes. Moving between trees like smoke wearing flesh. Rachel fought the roots, kicking and twisting. Her scream snapped me out of it. I grabbed her, pulled. The roots screamed. They had voices. Tiny ones. Children's voices. Stay, stay, stay. They hissed like wine through broken mouths. Rachel broke free and grabbed a candle from the wall. She slammed it into the altar, fire catching fast. The roots recoiled, shrieking in pain. The other me staggered, twitching violently. His skin cracked. From the seams, something moved underneath, like bugs under thin paper. I'm not you, I growled. I never was. And I lunged. I tackled him into the mirror. We fell. Not into glass. But into Ash Bluff again. Only this time. It was years ago. The town was alive. People bustled. Laughed. Talked. And at the edge of the forest, I saw ourselves, Rachel, Vince, Beck, and me, pulling into town in the car. Watching. Just like they had watched us. Then the other me whispered in my ear. This is where it always begins. The mirror shattered behind us, but the sound echoed forward, as if time bent backward and snapped. I stood in the past, in a version of Ash Bluff that was still breathing. Still unaware of what was coming. The air was dry, no rain. No rot. No roots. I watched us, myself, Rachel, Vince, and Beck, pulling into town, laughing, windows down, the road trip still just a trip. Then I noticed something. In the background. The church was already burnt. Charred, gutted, long dead. But we had just walked into it, alive and glowing. Time was fractured. We were in a loop. I've seen this before, Rachel whispered beside me. She had landed here too, somehow. In the mirror. We were always here. Always? I asked. She nodded. Like it's feeding off different versions of us. Different choices. Different roads. I looked at the storefront across the street. The girl with no arms stood there. Only, now she had arms. She waved. And smiled. Do you think if we break the loop, I began. We break the thing, Rachel finished. But then the ground shook. The clouds above spiraled inward, darker and redder than ever. The air smelled like rust and roots. A siren blared in the distance, not mechanical, but organic, like something screaming with metal lungs. The townspeople froze mid-step. Then, all at once, turned toward the forest. Their mouths opened wide, and from every throat came the same word. It's coming. From the tree line, the thing stepped out. It wasn't a deer. Not a man. Not a ghost. It was the shape of a curse, stitched together with antlers, hunger, and memory. Its legs bent the wrong way. Its mouth was a vertical slit from forehead to chest. It breathed fog and walked like it had always belonged. The people dropped to their knees, faces twisted in agony. It's the spine, Rachel said, gripping my arm. It's alive. The creature pointed toward the version of us that had just arrived in town. If it could stop us then, it would end the loop. End us forever. We had one chance. Stop ourselves from entering Ash Bluff. But that meant going up against the thing that ruled this place. Devil's Spine. The road. The forest. The church. The thing. All the same. All watching. And all hungry, the creature stalked toward the road like a nightmare wearing the skin of a forest. The people of Ash Bluff didn't scream, they just watched, mouths wide, as if trying to remember how to pray. Rachel grabbed my hand. We stop ourselves. We stop all of it. But if we do, I said slowly, we may never leave. We already never left, she whispered. Not really. The creature raised its arms. Roots exploded from its chest like veins unspooling. They ripped through the street, burrowing toward the version of us standing near the car. Beck opened the trunk. Vince laughed about the rain. Rachel, other Rachel, was about to say, let's find a place to sleep. That's the moment the spine always chose. I ran. Through the mud, the time-bleeding sky above pulsing like a heartbeat. Hey! I screamed at my other self, waving my arms like a lunatic. Stop! Don't go into town. He looked up, my other face, younger, unbroken. Then the roots struck. Rachel, the real one, grabbed a torch from a collapsed cart beside the burned church, still aflame in this version of time. She shoved it into the road. The roots recoiled. Screamed. The sound was like a choir of mouths buried underground. Other me stared in disbelief. You have to turn back. I shouted again. He took a step forward. No. Rachel screamed. The loop, don't repeat it. The creature roared, and the sky ripped. A vertical tear, revealing every version of Ash Bluff, all layered on top of each other like worn-out pages in a cursed book. One town, 100 timelines. 1,000 screams. And then Rachel threw the torch into the open church doors. The entire structure exploded in white fire. The roots ignited. The creature shrieked and folded inward, turning inside out, pulling itself into the wound in the sky. One by one, the people of Ash Bluff, past and present, collapsed into ash. The younger version of me blinked. And turned back. He climbed into the car, and they drove away. Out of Ash Bluff. Out of the loop. And then. Silence. The fire died. The church was gone. Rachel and I stood on an empty road. No sign. No town. No forest. Just rain. But this time, it was real rain. Cold. Clean. A single road behind us. And one ahead. We walked. No mirrors. No puppets. No roots. Just the long, wet stretch of highway. And somewhere far behind us, buried in the woods, the last rusted sign read. Ash Bluff, population, 0. Cloud with rain the end. The rain had started like a whisper, barely brushing the windshield, as Aiden drove deeper into the folds of the Appalachian wilderness. By the time he passed the rusted, "Welcome to West Virginia," sign, it was pounding down like nails. Sheets of gray soaked the twisted highway, and mist hung low like ghosts crawling over the asphalt. His GPS had died 2 hours ago. No signal. No reception. Just that winding Route 47 stretching endlessly into pine-shadowed hollows and steep ravines. "Shortcut, my ass," he muttered, tightening his grip on the wheel. Aiden was heading home from a friend's wedding in Tennessee, trying to shave 2 hours off the trip by taking this back road through the mountains. It had seemed fine in daylight. Now, the road looked older, like it had been forgotten by everyone but the trees pressing in too close. Then he saw her. A figure on the side of the road, in the downpour. Thin, in a long white coat or dress, hair stuck to her face. She didn't wave. Didn't move. Just stood there. Aiden's heart jolted. He eased off the gas, slowing beside her. His headlights caught her pale face for a moment. Wide eyes. Bare feet. Mud up to her knees. He rolled down the window halfway. "Ma'am, are you okay? You need help?" No answer. Rain hissed off the car. The woman's lips moved. But the sound, if there was any, was swallowed by the storm. "I can give you a ride to town," he began, but she turned. Not walked. Not ran. Turned. And started walking back into the woods, barefoot, head low. "What the hell," he whispered. Instinct told him to keep driving. But something gnawed at him, some uneasy sense that if he didn't follow, he'd regret it forever. Against all better judgment, he parked the car and grabbed his flashlight. The woods were darker than night, the rain louder among the trees. He followed her trail into the forest. 10 steps. 20. Mud sloshed underfoot. Pine needles carpeted the ground. The wind carried something foul. A faint, rotten smell like wet meat. Aiden's light flicked over bark, branches, shapes too twisted to name. Then it caught something on a tree. A carving. "Don't follow her." The bark was fresh cut. Red sap oozed from the letters like blood. And just ahead, her white dress. Hanging. From a branch. Empty. He wasn't alone anymore. Aiden's breath hitched as his flashlight flickered. The soaked dress swung slightly in the wind, clinging to the gnarled branch like skin. There was no body. No footprints beyond that point. Only the woods. Only the rain. Only the feeling, like something had stepped behind him. He spun around, beam slicing the dark. Nothing. Just trees crowding close, heavy with rain. A branch snapped somewhere to his left. "Hello?" he called, voice thinner than he liked. "Ma'am." The forest answered with silence, and then, a whisper. Right beside his ear. "You shouldn't have followed." He spun again, heart thrashing. No one. No footprints. No voice now. But the woods had changed. They were darker. Deeper. The trail gone. He couldn't see the glow of his car headlights anymore. Then the flashlight went dead. Everything was black. Panic surged, but he forced himself to breathe, fumbled for his phone. 1% battery. No service. But the flashlight worked. He flicked it on, and nearly screamed. Just ahead, on the ground, something was crawling toward him. It wasn't the woman. Not anymore. Its skin was pale and loose, like wet cloth draped over bones. Its fingers bent backward, cracking with each twitch. It didn't walk, it jerked toward him, arms dragging through the mud, head tilted in a way that bones shouldn't allow. And it was smiling. Aiden turned and ran. Branches whipped his face, the flashlight bouncing with every step. His lungs burned. His shoes slipped in the muck, but he didn't stop, not until he burst back onto the road. His car was gone, just tire marks in the mud, leading off into nothing. No sound but the rain. And then, headlights. Another car, coming fast. Blinding. He waved, screamed, stumbled into the road. The car slowed. A rusted red pickup, older than it should have been on a road this empty. A man leaned out, beard down to his chest, eyes hidden under a soaked hat. "You lost, boy." Aiden nodded frantically. "Yes, there was a woman, something chased me, I need help." The man stared at him a long second. Then he jerked a thumb toward the passenger side. "Get in. Quick now. Before it finds you again." Aiden didn't ask who it was. He got in. As they pulled away, the man didn't speak for a long time. Just drove in silence. Then, in a low voice. "You should have never stopped for her. She's not alive. Hasn't been for 40 years. Aiden stared at the old man, heart still hammering in his chest. "Wait, what do you mean she's not alive?" The man didn't look away from the road. Rain pelted the windshield in waves, the wipers groaning uselessly across the glass. "She died in these woods in 1983. Her name was Eliza Garner. Went missing after her car broke down on this road. They found her dress hanging in a tree. Same as you saw." Aiden swallowed hard. "Then what did I see? What was chasing me?" The man tightened his grip on the wheel. "A part of her. Or what's left. Ain't the first time she's shown herself. But you saw more than most. You went in after her." Aiden's mind reeled. He wanted to believe this was a nightmare. That he'd slipped in the mud and hit his head. That he was in a hospital somewhere. But his pulse, the smell of wet earth on his clothes, and the icy dread curling in his gut told him otherwise. "What happens now?" he asked. The old man didn't answer. Just kept driving. After a long silence, they turned onto a narrower road, barely wide enough for one vehicle. No signs. No lights. Just dense trees closing in like jaws. Aiden noticed something else. They hadn't passed a single house. No towns. No lights behind them. And the clock on the dashboard read 2:12 a.m. The same as when he first saw the woman. "Your clock's stuck," Aiden said. The man glanced at it, then back at the road. "It ain't." "What?" "It's the road. This place. Time don't work right here." Aiden turned cold. "Where are we going?" The man's jaw clenched. He didn't answer. Then the truck slowed. Ahead, through the fog and rain, stood a wooden sign. The letters carved deep but weathered by time. Dry Creek Hollow. Below it, another sign hung crooked on rusty chains. Population, 0. The man cut the engine. "This is where she leads them. Everyone who follows. Everyone who stops. You ain't the first." "But why bring me here?" Aiden asked. The man turned to him, eyes heavy and dark. "Because you touched the woods. You heard her voice. That's all it takes. Now you belong to this road." Aiden's skin prickled. "You brought me here on purpose." The man nodded once. "You needed to see it." Lightning split the sky, and in the flash, Aiden saw them. Dozens of pale figures standing in the trees. Watching. One of them wore a white dress. Aiden froze, hand locked on the door handle. The figures didn't move. Didn't blink. Just stood beneath the trees, soaked, silent, and wrong. Their skin was gray, slick from the rain. Some had no eyes. Some had no mouths. But all of them stared. The man beside him whispered, "They're the hollowed." "The, what?" "Lost ones. Folks who got too close. Who didn't listen to the signs. Who followed her off the road and never came back right. They don't die, not really. Just, become something else." Aiden's throat was dry. "And you? What are you?" The man looked at him, really looked at him, and Aiden realized with horror the man's eyes didn't reflect the dash lights. No light in them at all. "I was like you once," he said. "Picked her up on a rainy night. Drove straight into hell. But I made a deal." "What kind of deal?" "I get to leave. So long as I bring others back in." Aiden felt the blood drain from his face. He reached for the door, yanked it open. Too late. The figures had moved. They were closer now, impossibly fast. One stood directly at the truck's window. A young girl with hair hanging in clumps, water dripping from her hollow eye sockets. Her mouth opened wide and poured out black water, flooding down the glass. Aiden screamed, slamming the door shut, locking it. "Drive," he shouted. But the man just stared straight ahead. "You don't get it. There's no leaving after you've seen them. Not unless someone takes your place." The girl outside started clawing the window. Deep, slow scratches. Then Aiden heard it, whispers again. This time not in his ear, but inside his skull. Burrowing thoughts. Voices speaking in a language older than English, older than breath. His nose began to bleed. He gripped his temples. "Stop it, stop." The man sighed. "Only way to silence them is to become one of them. Or leave someone in your place." What? The man finally looked at him again, and now Aiden saw what had been hiding beneath that old flannel coat. No skin on his chest. Just bark. His arms weren't arms anymore. They were wood. He hadn't just worked for the hollowed. He was becoming one. And now, it was Aiden's turn. Aiden couldn't breathe. He pressed his back to the truck door, heart slamming against his ribs like it wanted out. The man, or whatever he was now, just sat there. Wooden fingers tightening on the steering wheel, creaking like old floorboards. "You were never getting me out of here, were you?" Aiden asked, voice cracking. The man shook his head slowly. "Wasn't my choice. Once she marks you, the road decides." Outside, the figures drew closer. Their eyes glowed faint now, pale green, like will-o'-the-wisps flickering behind rotted flesh. The girl at the window smiled, impossibly wide. Her jaw cracked as it opened farther than human bones should allow. Aiden shoved open the door and stumbled out into the rain. The woods were waiting. And he could feel it, something watching him from inside the trees. He ran. Splashed through puddles. Slid in mud. Branches whipped across his arms, his face. Somewhere, far behind, he heard the old truck engine sputter back to life. But he didn't look back. He couldn't. The whispers were returning. But now they had form, voices he recognized. His mother's. His childhood friends. His own voice, repeating. "You belong here. You belong here. You belong here." Then he burst through the trees, and into a clearing. A house stood in the center, ancient and lopsided, built of blackened timber. Its roof sagged. Its windows stared like blind eyes. But light burned inside, warm and flickering. Aiden hesitated. Behind him, the forest hissed. Whispers crawled closer. He stepped toward the house. The door creaked open on its own. Inside, it smelled of firewood and old decay. A single oil lamp burned on a table. And in a rocking chair beside the hearth sat a woman with wet, tangled hair and mud-streaked skin. The woman in the white dress. She smiled gently. "You shouldn't have followed me," she said. "But now that you have." Aiden backed up. She stood, slowly. Her feet never touched the floor. "You'll help me leave." Lightning crashed, and in its flash, her face peeled. Skin sloughed like wax, revealing something beneath. Not bone. Bark. Roots. Wood. Just like the old man. Aiden screamed. The door slammed shut behind him. Aiden spun toward the door, yanking at the handle. Locked. The air inside the cabin had thickened, warm, wet, and pulsing like breath. The lamp flickered, shadows crawling up the walls like fingers. The woman floated forward, head tilting unnaturally to the side. "I've waited so long," she whispered. "Every time they try to burn this place, it grows back. Every time they salt the roads, the trees crawl further in. And every time someone opens their door to me." She smiled again. "No teeth now, just moss. I come closer to escaping." Aiden stumbled back until his heel caught the table leg and he went down hard. The woman hovered above him. Her long, dripping hair fell over his face. He could smell rot. Rain. Something ancient and hungry. "I don't want to die," he choked. "Oh," she crooned. "You won't die." She leaned closer, lips almost brushing his ear. "You'll take my place." And then her fingers touched his chest. Pain lanced through him, white-hot and deep, like something burrowing under his ribs. He screamed, writhing on the floor. He clawed at his shirt, at his chest, and then he saw it. Bark. It was sprouting across his skin. Cracking it. Curling over his collarbone like roots through dirt. "No, no, please. She stepped back, voice echoing as her form began to flicker, to crack apart. "I was a passenger once too," she said. "A storm. A kind man. A broken-down car. And then the forest took me." She looked toward the window, where shadows pressed like hands against the glass. "They always take one." Her body split in half, vertically, like a tree hollowed from the inside. Bark burst from her spine, limbs splintering, face stretching in a silent wail. Roots twisted through the floor, anchoring her to the cabin. Aiden's skin tore open as more bark spread. He couldn't scream anymore. His mouth filled with leaves. Outside, the rain slowed. The door creaked open. The old man stepped in, his wooden hand resting over his heart. Another figure stood beside him, a woman, soaked and shivering in a white dress. He nodded at the still, half-transformed form of Aiden, whose eyes had now turned glassy. "Welcome to the hollow, brother." And they closed the door behind them. They found Aiden's rental car 3 weeks later. Parked neatly along Route 47, keys still in the ignition. No signs of struggle. Just a muddy handprint on the driver's side window, and long scratches across the hood, as if something had crawled over it with nails like thorns. There was no sign of Aiden. The local sheriff wrote it off as a runaway. Another lost hiker, maybe. Maybe he'd slipped in a storm, wandered off, fell into the ravine. The mountains had a habit of swallowing people. But the locals knew better. Those who lived along that stretch of the mountains didn't travel at night. Didn't pick up strangers. Didn't talk to women in white dresses, no matter how desperate they looked in the rain. And if they saw the headlights of a rusted red pickup truck with no plates, idling on the side of the road, they kept driving. Because some nights, when the mist rolls in heavy and the trees lean just a little too close, you can see the cabin. Just a flicker of light through the woods. And if you listen closely, you'll hear someone inside, pounding on the walls, trying to scream through a mouth full of leaves. A man with bark creeping over his chest. A man who should have just kept driving. The end.